Welcome to the Business Growth Masterclass, where business growth is made simple. Listen as we discuss best practices to streamline your operations, increase your profits, and ultimately create healthier, more stable, and more valuable companies. Today's guest is none other than Chase McNutt, one of the co-founders of Citadel Construction, a commercial construction company headquartered here in Lubbock, Texas. And it was a fun interview, Kellen.
Yeah, it was a good time. Chase is a fun guy.
He's a colorful guy.
Yeah.
What would you say is your number one takeaway from this interview?
Well, Chase has, he's always willing to jump in to new things. And that's always inspiring to talk to somebody who, even if you don't have the answers, you're willing to go for it. And with him, that's about having faith that God is going to lead him and being prayerful in that process. And then he talked about, balancing life and, being present and seeing people as, human beings, not human doing, so being present, being prayerful, and then asking a lot of questions. I feel like those were the things that he really highlighted, and I really enjoyed that. So how about for you?
I really appreciated how he led with his faith and continues to lead with his faith. But I think business leaders or those who are employed right now that might have aspirations to work for themselves eventually should listen to his story, because his story is this arc that is building towards his current venture today. And he had several stops along the way, but all of his previous work experience, he was intentionally building knowledge, intentionally seeking wisdom from people who had been there longer, done it bigger, done it better, to gain the knowledge he needed to eventually go out on his own. And eventually he had to. There was no, it was so obvious to everyone in his life, including his employer, was you have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's time, jump. And I think so many entrepreneurs can relate to that story. I know I can. That was a lot of my story, that I think if you have aspirations to be a business owner, listen to his story and how he went about building his knowledge and experience and capability to make that jump.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
All right. Enjoy the podcast. Here we go. All right. Welcome to the podcast, Chase McNutt.
Hello. How are y'all doing?
Doing good, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. We've been looking forward to this. And so I'm curious, just to start us off, what's your go-to snack during the day?
Oh, go-to snack is going to be prepackaged protein shake. Got a lot of those at the office. Keep them at the house. Mixed nuts and cheese combo packs.
Oh, yeah. Is that a Costco one there?
Costco.
Yeah, I know the one.
We
That's good
frequent the
stuff.
Costco. Absolutely.
Man, we've had healthy people. I always want it to be like, I don't know, like a Little Debbie or I want it to be that so bad, but
those are there in between, but that's not the daily. Can't have those all the time.
People are going to tell about those on the podcast.
Right.
Yeah. They don't want to know about Big Deborah.
All right. Well, that's great. I'm proud for your healthy choices. Sure. What got you, so getting into what we're actually here to talk about today, what got you into your industry? What is the beginning of your story?
So I guess starting out, there was a guy that I met at a Bible study that we had started a fertilizer company together, and we met at the Bible study, started the fertilizer company. He built homes here in Lubbock.
Okay.
And that eventually evolved into conversations of, like, he was asking me, what do I want to do when I grow up, type of deal. And I was like, man, I've always wanted to do construction. He was like, well, why are you not doing it? I was like, well, that's just not something that you can get into. It's kind of hard to start your own construction company when you don't know anything about construction. So he was like, man, I build homes. Do you want to come work for me? I was like, well, if you'll have me, I'll come check it out. The only thing at the time that I could do, I'm not very physically, I'm not really good with my hands. I don't have a whole lot of talents. I don't have trade in that aspect, but I was doing some cabinets and trim. Went to work for him as a trim carpenter on the trim crew, and within 2 weeks took over we were in the middle of a 22 home construction project. never built a home a day in my life. And I went from that Friday looking for checks. The guys rally at the end of the block. They usually bring checks. Everybody on the job site shows up to me and they're like, "Hey, we heard you have our checks." And I was like, "Man, that's news to me."
Oh, wow.
So the owner comes up and he's like, "Hey, you're the new superintendent. You're going to be taking over the rest of this project." And I was like, "Oh Lord."
Yeah.
So
wow.
that was essentially how I got started in construction, finished those 22 homes out. We ended up doing close to, I think, 90 homes for that guy.
That's
over
amazing.
the next 3 years. It was just me and him. He ran the books. I ran the field. And then at that point, Rick Beatonbow and the Beatonbow outfit came and headhunted me to come work at Beatonbow.
All right. I got to stop him right there. You're a humble part of the Chase charisma is just how matter of fact and good old boy you come across, and how much you downplay your gifts. And so building a home is a complex project.
Absolutely.
Especially relative to whatever DIY cabinet kit you go buy from Lowe's and take it home and put it together. You were obviously doing something well that they gave you that responsibility. How did you go about learning the trade? Obviously, it was trial by fire.
Absolutely.
But how were you learning about it along the way?
One thing I would say is God's favor.
Yeah.
That's one thing that if you're praying for that favor, one thing I've always heard, favor isn't fair. And that's something that God's favor isn't fair. It's not selective. He doesn't say, "Hey, you get more favor here or there." Like when you have God's favor, it makes no sense how you get places and how you do things. I spent a lot of time with the trades. That was something on site every day, hanging out with the electricians, asking them questions, hanging out with the concrete guys, figuring out how concrete cures, figuring out how to place concrete, figuring out just all the ins and outs of construction as a whole. And that's something that if you engulf yourself in it, you're naturally going to learn. So between asking a lot of questions, being willing and able and present at the time, and then also having the right people around you to give you that information. Like if you're willing to learn, there's a lot of people out there that'll teach you, but you have to be willing to learn. I spend a lot of early mornings, long evenings, late nights. Like there was many days, weeks, months, and years now at this point that it just takes a lot to get to this stage. But ultimately I would say God's favor. Like there was zero reason for Rick Beatonbow to be on that job site with Corey and a couple of the other guys and the executives walking through our product. We were a much inferior builder. We weren't competition. There was no reason for them to be there. So I think that in itself is, maybe they stumbled across it. I don't know, but just talked to them that day and told them what I was up to, and more conversations later, just eventually it came to a head, and it was like, "Hey, I want to go to the next level." And Rick was like, "Well, I think you come with me." And that actually, the guy that I started building for, he was gracious enough he forced me out. He literally, like, I would have been pretty upset. I spent all this time pouring into this kid, gave him the reins, gave him all of these resources, and for me to leave. And that was one thing. I'm very loyal. And I was like, "Man, I can't leave you. I can't, like, I appreciate everything that you've done. And that's something that I can't pay you back." And he was like, "I'm not asking you to pay me back. I'm asking this for you. Like, you go do what's right for you."
Wow.
And he essentially said, "If you don't take that job offer, I'm going to fire you." I was like, "Noted." It's like, so.
Wow.
Okay. So what year did you start? Did you start for the original home builder?
That would have been, I think, in 2009.
Okay.
2008 or 2009.
09. And then for our listeners, Beatonbow is a home builder here in Lubbock, Texas, that is one of the most prolific, mainly starter homes, would you say? Mainly
Absolutely.
Starter homes.
That's their niche, is starter homes.
And they do it very affordably, but through that, it's all economies of scale and technology and so many things they've done to really streamline that operation to build quality starter homes.
At one point, they were the 42nd largest home builder in the United States.
That's amazing.
Just here in Lubbock.
Giant West Texas company.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get into some of their culture later. But so
culture.
Rick Beatonbow comes calling.
Yep. So he saw what we were doing, liked it. Me and him got along. He brought me over to Beaton Bow. And at the time, I think I was in the field for about 6 months on the construction side and kind of knew a lot I would say for what they start guys at knowledge wise. I knew a lot more than the average guy that came on board. So I was able to excel pretty quickly. And then this project came up of the new office on 82nd. That was the Grove and the wedding venue and all that stuff. At the time, Rick was picking my brain about it. And it was like, hey, who would you get to build this? You know, anybody in town that you would recommend? So I gave him 2 or 3 names, and then they dialed it down to 1. And one of the guys was one of my mentors, another guy that has built things all over the country, that poured into me for many years, spent a lot of time with me, a guy named Patrick Goff. And I recommended him for the job. This guy's like in his 80s.
Oh, wow.
Like been there, done that. Perfect guy for the job. Well, Patrick tells Rick that he's not going to do the job unless I do it. And I was like, you're an idiot, an absolute idiot. Like I've never done a project. It was a $32 or $34 million project, multi-story.
It's a big job.
Amphitheater, courtyard, sky bridge, bell tower, clock tower, elevators here and there, like just stuff that I'd never done. And so for whatever reason, Rick sat me down. He was like, hey, I think you're my guy. And I was like, I also think you're an idiot. This is where 2 idiots met. So went home and prayed about it. And I was like, man, at this point, I don't have anything to lose. Like these guys, they see something in me that I obviously don't see. They believe in me. They're willing to take the risk of letting me at least help with this project. I didn't know to what extent. So long story short, it turned into a 2.5-year long project. And we built it with about I'd say a 60, maybe 70% set of plans. There was a lot of changes that were made. Beaton Bow was growing so fast. As soon as we build something, they'd outgrown it or it changed. But ultimately one of the coolest buildings in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh yeah.
And essentially I got, I would say 30 to 35 years of construction experience on that one job. Like we saw stuff that guys that have been doing this their whole life have never seen. So it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for me.
That's a quick way to level up.
It absolutely. And I think God realized that with me and the way that I learn. He's like, you're too slow to drag along in certain areas. He's like, I'm just going to throw you into it and it's sink or swim and you'll figure out a way to swim. So,
well, if I was trying to sum up what you were just saying, I'm thinking about that idea of leveling up fast. And it's because you're willing to take risks, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Willing to jump in when you didn't always know, but you didn't do it blindly, had good mentors, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. I honestly don't think I was smart enough to know what I was getting into a lot of the time. Like, to be real honest, I was young in every aspect, like each of these stages. I didn't know what I was signing up for, but I did have, and what I've always had is mentors and people pouring into me. And I listen to people. I don't want to make mistakes that others have made. And if I can prevent heartburn in that aspect, I'll do it anytime.
That's awesome.
So having the right people is a huge deal.
And then I was trying to think the other things you said. We had prayers. We had being present. Yep. And then you're asking preguntas. You're asking questions. I got my 3 Ps.
Yeah.
All right. So it can't all be roses though, right? You got any stories about times when you got a setback, something went wrong, you had to learn the hard way?
Oh man. In construction, there is always things wrong.
Yeah.
To what magnitude that varies, but I don't have anything off the top of my head that's
not one from the
huge.
Early days that was like, oh man, that was a tough day that I learned a lot.
I built a house on the wrong lot.
Okay, that's a good one.
You almost spit your water out. I love that. It was actually at Beaton Bow, and I came on hot and heavy, just jumped in the mix, and we went to a new neighborhood. I went kind of rogue on this deal. We didn't have a plat from my GM, and I've got a bunch of other reasons I can blame it on. But at the end of the day, we pulled measurements from one end of the street, many lots down, pulled it from the other. We're matching off of transformers, water meter boxes. There was 10 of us out there, electricians, fence guys, concrete guy. And I seriously think everybody was like, hey, this lot, this is what we're coming up with. And I was like, no, it's this one. I'm like, guys, just go
trust
with
me.
Well, it was wrong. It was that one. And I put it on that house. We started it and got footings in. I think we got all the way to slab.
Oh dear.
Like it got a ways down the way, like far enough. It was
multiple
an issue.
trades involved and lots of money.
Yeah.
Lots of money. And
they got a house.
I'll never forget. Yeah, we had to change some paperwork around, but it's happened a couple of times at Beaton Bow. They just move fast, but I made a bad call that day and overturned and I still don't fully know how I did it, but I did it. And ultimately that was probably the biggest, dumbest thing I've ever done. It wasn't a huge financial problem. It was workable, but one thing I'll never forget, I remember thinking Rick was going to just hang me for this deal. And Rick was like, if you know Rick, with his little son, like, hey, it's all right, man. Hey, there's going to be another one. Like, let's go. And I was like, that's it? Like, I just put a house. I don't know what it cost him. And he was like, I don't care. He's like, what's never going to happen again is you're not going to put a house on the wrong lot. And he's like, this is the best lesson you could have ever learned. And I was like, wow, that's mind boggling that he brushed it off that easy. And
what a great example for all the bosses out there.
Man, if you can get to that place in life where Rick was, that was a learning lesson, and it cost some money and it cost some time. I got enough grief for it that I will double, triple check whatever we're building on. So to this day, we go above and beyond to verify building corners. But he's right. I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about Beaton Bow's culture. I think that this is important, that Beaton Bow maybe explicitly is a Christian company.
Are
right. There's multiple Bible studies led by all of the employees that a lot of the employees are participating in, attending regularly, down to, praying in the house with the family that's moving
giving
in.
them a Bible when they move in.
Yeah, there's so much there that I think when people hear of like Christian companies, they don't necessarily expect excellence.
Yeah.
And Beaton Bow is crazy. It's one of those like unicorns that they almost in West Texas pioneered the ESOP program.
Yep.
There's no like specialty attorneys that can walk you through that. And Beaton Bow just brought that in house. Hey, we're gonna implement this super complex employee stock option program, ESOP, and then the software that they have designed their own,
created
in-house software that's this super complex project management, ordering, ERP software that is their competitive advantage. And then at the same time, you have the guy at the helm who's like sponsoring you to go on mission trips and all. Talk about that. I know all these from you, right. and it's always blown my mind. But like, what was that like walking into that? And then after the fact, what has stuck with you?
So for me, walking into that, it wasn't that big of a stretch because that's kind of a culture that I've come from in many aspects. Like prayer is not foreign to me. Reading the Bible, stuff like that. And in the workplace it is. But what I think about is the people that don't have that in their previous dealings in business. For them to walk into Beaton Bow Homes, it's mind blowing. Like to see the Friday positives every morning, the Friday lunches where they get your entire family together and they pay for food to be catered in, and it's just for community. They want you to interact with coworkers, the spouses, just all the prayer during meetings, the decisions that get made. Like they're actively asking for wisdom and discernment in everything that they do from the top to the bottom. And you see it flow through the company because there's a lot of people involved that are in a management position that don't have that background of, I grew up praying, I grew up going to church, I grew up asking for wisdom, all this stuff. But the coolest thing about it is seeing those people I was there 7 years and seeing some of those guys just grow in their faith. And when you first see them starting out, it's like, man, I'm having to go through the motions because this is what Beaton Bow wants. And they want us to pray and they want us to lead. But by the end of it, it's like, this is me now. Like they step into that position, and they truly are changing people, like legit changing. They're changing the construction industry, the softwares. There's nothing else out there like it. All the other software is available. It doesn't matter how expensive they are. There's nothing that can do what their software can do and create the efficiencies that they have. But they pour into their people. The work-life balance, that's a real deal to them. Rick Beaton Bow almost fired me he didn't fire me for putting a house on the wrong lot or going over budget on this or doing all these things. He almost fired me for not going home to be with my family. And that happened multiple times. And I thought it was a joke the first time. And the second time I realized it was not a joke.
Wow.
Like it was, if you do this again, you will not work here. I was like, wow. So they take that stuff very seriously. And as I'm starting my company, like I'm trying to take as much of that stuff as possible. And I've asked Cal, who's now running Beat and Bow, like whatever information you guys can give me. I've learned a lot of it while I was there, but I want to implement as much as that. I want to take that culture, and that's ultimately their goal. They want people just like me. They know that Beat and Bow is not my forever home. They want me to go start a new company and take the culture and for the people. And that's like, we want to be a people company that just creates community and work-life balance. Like that's a real deal. So that's something we preach at Citadel. That's something that's very important to us.
Well, just having that view of people as people and not just workers,
Yep.
Not just doers in your business, but the whole person is so important. But I think it's something a lot of business owners miss. It's just so cool that you got to experience that at Beat and Bow first. So now that you are the business owner, how do you balance your personal life and all the things that go with running a business and still being a dad and a husband and all those things?
I can tell you that I have failed miserably before Beat and Bow. I failed at that miserably. And then even at Beat and Bow, I still failed at that miserably. And up until the day that I left Beat and Bow, I was not actively pursuing that portion of it. And that's something that I learned the quality of life at home with your marriage, with your kids, the time you're available as a dad, like that stuff, doing that project, Beat and Bow, I missed a lot of that. And Maddie, my oldest, she's 9, first 3 years of her life, I missed every ounce of it. I was working and justifying it to my wife. And thank the good Lord that Casey, you guys know Casey, she corrected me on that. And she had been trying for years, but it finally took stepping out into Citadel. And that was one of her biggest fears. And she was like, I know that you're going to own your own business. I know you're going to do this stuff, but you don't have anybody, you don't have a Rick Beat and Bow telling you to go home. You don't have these people telling you when to quit. And that's what she was ultimately nervous about. And so it took a while early on, but just sitting back and realizing that work is not about money. It's not about status or making a name for yourself. Like if you really think about what your internal goals are as a parent, as a husband, and that stuff that daily trying to get better at. So you have to turn it off. Like you can't, there's no justifying it. Like you're either at home or you're not. And even if you're home and you're not present, you're on your phone, which I'm horribly guilty at. Like you're not doing it right. And ultimately that's not going to work for marriage. Your kids are going to see it. My kids notice it. So you have to, I have to pray for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, because that's not something that I can physically control. I'm passionate and I'm hungry and I want more in the workplace. And those are just two really hard things to balance. So I constantly have to pray for, like, God, help me shut it off. Like, tell me when I'm doing too much, or give me a wife that tells me I'm doing too much. And he comes through in that category very well.
That's nice. My wife, you've got that help.
My wife is very vocal in that, and she's not wrong. Like, owe it to her. I signed up for marriage. I signed up with these kids, and that's my life. And work can't be my life. Work's the way I provide for my life. I've got to be present in those two aspects in order to have a healthy marriage and to have good kids.
I think it's a struggle for so many of us to not be a human doing, to be a human being, and being present with our families and our wives, and being deliberate about that time. It's hard when you've got so many things to juggle and your phone is blowing up because everybody needs something from you as the business owner. It's nice that you are aware of it and you got a wife that helps you, but
I'm aware of it. I can't say that I'm good at it yet.
Well,
I wish I was, but that's something on a daily basis I'm trying to get better at.
Yeah.
Tell us, what does today look like? So we've kind of got the story up until Beat and Bow. It's time to leave Beat and Bow and start Citadel construction. So what is that?
So Citadel started when I was in my last year at Beat & Bow, and this is something that I'd always told Rick from the day he hired me. At some point, I'm going to go do my own thing. And I honestly thought I'd be there 2 or 3 years tops. Turned into 7 because of the culture, because of the people I was around. But Taylor Tucker reached out to me, I guess this has been 5.5 years ago at this point. Grew up with him, known him my whole life. He called out of left field and said, "Hey, we're looking at, we want to build apartments." I was like, "That's a terrible idea. That is the worst construction that you can possibly do." And
why is that? Why is it the worst?
It's in between residential construction and commercial. It's kind of a redheaded stepchild, no pun intended. But
we always get picked on.
It's right in the middle. So you have residential trades that it's sometimes big enough or too big for them to dabble in, and then on the commercial side, there's more money in commercial. So you just have this gray area that nobody wants to exist in.
I see.
So you have to pull somebody from this. Either way, you're pulling somebody, and it's always a fight. It's huge. I mean, there's this last project, 243 units. You're slamming. There's a lot going on. So if you think about it from a superintendent standpoint, 17-acre site, and you have construction going on every square inch of that 17 acres. So you have problems over there, then you get a call over there, then you get a call over there. So it's just, it takes a lot of pre-planning, and there's just a lot that goes into it.
So how did he talk you into this?
So I really don't know, honestly, to this day, but he called, we went and ate. We actually talked about it for probably a year. And I told him, if I leave Beat & Bow, I'm not doing construction. I told my wife that. I told everybody. I was like, I'm done with construction. I'm worn out. I've spent my time. So a year later, I was like, sure, we're going to go do construction, and we're going to go do multifamily. So the reason I went back into this was because of Taylor and Jordan, the two guys. I didn't know Jordan very well at the time, but Taylor, who I've known a very long time and I trust with my life, he has that same trust with Jordan. And so I was like, man, this is a rare opportunity for two guys. Like, it's hard to go into business with friends, with family, with all the things. Like, it's the worst thing you can possibly do. I mean, anybody would agree with that. But Taylor's one of those guys that he's a friend, and at this point, he's now a brother. But I trust that guy with everything. Like, he's proven himself through and through. Anytime, there's been a million times that he could have done something in his favor and not in mine, and he's never once done it. And so
that's awesome. A lot of people are jealous of that in a business partner. And you need that.
I would be too. And it's a rare thing that I've found, but also prayer. I mean, all the signs were pointing to, don't get back into construction. Like, I'm not good at handling or managing myself in the construction atmosphere. I work too much. I do all these things, whatever, which maybe I can do that with anything, but just prayed about it and got a peace that, I woke up one morning, I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And my wife was like, great, like, here we go. But it's been the best thing, and we're doing it different. That's one thing I love about those guys. They're allowing me to do construction different, trying to take some of the Beat & Bow culture. We want to be different in that aspect of how we treat subcontractors. Like, GCs are known as, I can't think of a better word, but the hard asses of construction. You're just always yelling. Yep. There's always, it's a deadline. It's bottom line. Nobody cares about your feelings. Nobody cares if you're sick. Nobody cares about anything. They care about these two things.
Yeah.
On budget, on time.
On budget and on time. And so we're trying to do that different and bring people along with us the same way that we want to bring our employees along and create community and create this culture. We want the subs. Like, if you think about subcontractors, they don't have nobody. If you're a subcontractor, you have nobody to create that space for you unless you're creating it on your own. And that's a really hard deal for a lot of people to understand as a business owner. But we want that to overflow into the subcontractors. We want them to be involved with this. We give a lot more grace. We give a tremendous amount of grace in a construction zone on deadlines and stuff. Like, it's a hard balance. We want to be human in the deal here, but it's just different from how the industry's done it and the way we communicate with people. We don't yell at people. There's ways to get things done. without yelling, without cussing, without all the things that GCs are known for. We want them to grow their business at the same time we're growing ours. We want them to go to the next project with us. We don't want to cut them so low on a project that we never see them again. So it's just an inclusive environment that we're trying to create and recreate from project to project. So Taylor and Jordan had this idea, and I decided on January 6th, I left Beat and Bow. That was the day that I started at Beat and Bow, and 7 years later to the day I left. And we started Citadel, and we've been doing multifamily, commercial, industrial. We do anything but residential. We just don't do anything in the residential space. So it's been incredible. We've had a lot of opportunity. We've been blessed, but a lot of that's due to the three of us as the leaders of that company, with lots of prayer and praying for the right people, praying for the right jobs to come up. Essentially, the right people's been the big ticket for us this year. And really the last 2 years, just praying that God brings us the right people at the right time. And he's come through and he's been faithful in that. And so the only thing I know to do is keep praying.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
well, we have one of our questions that we usually ask is, what's the secret to your success? I feel like you've already been giving us so many of them, and I think you were leading with prayer.
Yep.
What would you add anything to the list? Because you've already had so many good things.
Man, I joke about this, but I literally pray for wisdom and favor every day. And a lot of the situations I find myself in that are overwhelming, that I don't understand, I think are God giving me wisdom. I view this as I'm praying for wisdom, and God's like, okay, I'm going to put you in a situation that you've never been in, and I'm going to give you limited resources, what I feel like, and you're going to find a way out of it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, guess what you have? You've learned, you have knowledge now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the answer to your wisdom.
Yeah.
And so I would say if you want to call it a secret to success, it's prayer. It's putting myself aside and asking God, like, I'm so limited in this, my resources, my knowledge. I have no education. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to school for any of this stuff that I'm doing. I grew up in a residential environment. Now I'm in a commercial and multifamily, completely different, but it was still construction.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's just seeking God and saying, like, give me the eyes to see things that I can't see. Like, I want to see things through your eyes. I want to see people through your eyes. I want to see everything from top to bottom, start to finish. I want to see it through your lens, and give me the resources emotionally, physically, mentally, like whatever it is, spiritually, like just make those available to me. And so prayer is 1000% my secret sauce if I had one.
He described one of the concepts we talk about, the 4 C's of committing, jumping in. He's jumping in with both feet into the fire, committing to that, having the courage to be bad at it for a season. And then through that courage, through the persistence of, we're going to see this project through to the end.
Stick with itness.
You develop a new capability that then over time you have confidence.
Yep.
And it's because you started with committing to it, having the courage to be bad, and then eventually
look like an idiot for a little bit, and then hopefully at some point you don't look like an idiot. That's the goal. But
and you touched on that earlier. Entrepreneurs have a level of, I don't know how to pronounce this word, like naivete, that I don't know everything, but I'm going to jump into it, and we're going to it's ignorance is bliss to a degree. Yep. You're just ignorant enough to think you can.
Yep. And
I think that's one of those, intangible qualities of an entrepreneur is you got to have the guts to do it.
Yeah. And I think the only difference in that is some guys will say, I can do anything. I can figure it out. I can learn it.
Yes.
And I think that's very evident in a lot of very successful people. I think I don't have that to a certain extent. I have I'm going to lean on God to give me that. Like, I know I don't have it. So it's not more of a putting myself forward and saying, I'm going to figure this out. It's like, man, God, I'm getting called to this table. I'm getting called to this job, this, whatever it is. I'm like, you know me, you know what I don't have, you know what this takes. So if you want me here, then you're going to give me what I need.
Yeah. It's a trust thing.
It's a huge trust deal.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's something I tell young people all the time. If you don't have a prayer life, you better get one.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
there's so much good in reframing that from an I standpoint to he's putting me in this position, so I'm going to trust that he's going to equip me along the way. I don't have every answer.
Yeah.
It's like Albert was saying, so many entrepreneurs we talk to, that's the common thread we see is that mentality of, I don't have all the answers, but let's go for this. Yeah. But I love the trust that you have in prayer and in God and talking about it from your perspective too. So that's really inspiring. What is the thing that you're most excited about right now at Citadel?
Oh, at Citadel, I would say right now for me, it's the people. I kind of hit on it earlier. Citadel's still a small company and not a whole lot of people know who we are, but we are getting some bigger names in the industry that are interested in coming on board. We've got a few of them coming on board that if you would have told me 3 years ago when we started that we'd be looking at some of these people and talking to them or being in the same room on some jobs, that I would have told you you're crazy. Like that was more of a 15-year goal or maybe even a 20-year. And we're getting some people that it's just mind-boggling that how did they hear about us? Why are they even talking to us? And we've got some people interviewing at every GC in West Texas, and they could go to any of them.
Yeah.
And we just had one a couple of weeks ago that's coming to Citadel. And it's like, that is God's favor.
That's really cool.
You can't, there's no explanation for that whatsoever. That's not anything I'm doing, we're doing. Like that is, again, praying to God. Like, hey, if you want this guy here, I need you to make it happen. I don't see how it's possible, but if it's in your will, then let's go with it. So we'll be sitting here waiting, and if he shows up, we're ready. And there's been a couple of them here lately. They show up, and I'm like, ooh, what do we do now?
That's a good feeling, though.
It is. It's cool. I think it means that we're doing something right.
Yeah.
I think that God's showing us some favor, and I think he's trusting us with what we've been given and just to handle it correctly and steward that properly. And I think so far, we're doing that. But I think there's a lot more that goes into that. And so it, again, requires a lot of prayer from just wisdom and how to maintain things.
I know this from knowing you over the years, and I've heard it in your story today, is a lot of this, you are present with people, right? As a business owner, so many people have this incorrect depiction in their mind that the owner, lives on some beach and comes in once a month to check on the troops and then ships out. And what I've heard all throughout your story and how you've built the culture that you have is you're present on site with your people. You're there where the work happens, getting to know all of your subcontractors, everybody, getting to know them and developing real relationship with them to lead them, to invite them into the community and culture that you learned from day one and through those 7 years at Beat and Bow. This is how we do business. This is how we want to do business differently. We don't get it perfect, but we care about our family. We lead with our faith. Mm-hmm. And, I'm going to be in there right next to you, helping you develop, helping you build your business. And that's what a leader does. A leader is like a coach. And that's so much what I've heard is like you're coaching up even your trades. Like they're not technically your employee, but it's, it's contract labor, 1099 folks that if you can pour into them a little bit, you're making them better at what they do.
Yeah. But if I'm a sub and I'm listening to this, I'm thinking I want to go work for them.
Right. Well, a lot of this is we can't do it without them. Yeah. So we have to bring them along. So if you're going to bring somebody along, why not get to know them?
Yep.
Why not get to know them on a personal level and actually have a meaningful conversation with them, get to know their family. I mean, some of these guys, I've got some electricians and concrete guys that are family. Like they would come to my family events.
Yep.
They're closer than a lot of my family. I've grown up with them, but I trust them, and we just have a different relationship. It's not just work and job site talk. It's like legit getting to know people, and some of that with my people or the people of Citadel, the employees. At my age, I don't know everything. So a lot of that's, I'm spending time with people. One, it may be a control issue. That's one thing I'm looking into is I want to know what everybody's doing. And it's not from I really hope it's not from a control standpoint, but it's more of like, I want to know what you guys are doing. One, I can learn in the middle of that. Like a lot of my people are twice my age.
Mm-hmm.
So they have wisdom that I don't. So as we're going through stuff, like I may be the boss here, but I'm still learning just as much as they are, and just doing stuff together in tandem always makes more sense to me. Making decisions in isolation, like that's just not who I am, and that's not who Citadel is. We don't do anything in isolation. It's community, it's group effort, bring everybody along. So
hearing the humility throughout this it's just cool. A lot of business owners that we talk to that are seeing success, many of them are people who are trusting in God like you. But along with that, the humility and knowing, not taking credit. This is cool to talk to people who have that mindset. And I really appreciate that in you too. Albert, you think we're ready for a fire round?
Let's do a fire round.
All right.
Fire away.
Okay. Chase, what's your favorite movie?
I like shoot 'em up movies, so I think Mark Wahlberg's Shooter is still one of my favorites.
Oh,
dang, I haven't seen that in forever.
That is a good one.
It's a good one. It's a little.
That's a good
rough.
sniper movie.
Probably not a family movie, but
Yeah.
I like sniper movies. I like they are shoot 'em up.
That's one I wouldn't have thought of, but I like that. That's a good one.
All right. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, I'll rattle off a couple. So Thanks for the Feedback by Sheila Heen.
I haven't read that
That's
one.
out of left field.
Okay.
I'm big on communication. I suck at it, but it's one of my favorite things to read about.
Okay.
Any of Patrick Lencioni's books.
What
5
are some-
Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yes.
Advantage. Let's see. Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. It's a negotiation book.
So you're a reader.
You would think that. So I do a lot of Audible.
Okay.
I don't, if I could have it my way, I would do Audible and read a paperback book with a highlighter.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a learning disability, but whatever it is, that's my best way. So it costs a whole lot of money to read one book doing it that way. But I like Audible. Anytime I get a chance, if I'm driving down the road, going on trips, mowing the yard, I'm always listening to something beneficial, or you can always learn something.
Yeah.
Take little
Another
nuggets.
common thread there.
Yeah, those were all
Little
really
nuggets.
good.
Thanks for the feedback. Okay. I want to check that one out.
Yeah.
All right.
Next question. What's one piece of advice that you think is common in your industry? You don't agree with it?
From a construction standpoint, one that we hear a lot is it looks good from my house, meaning I don't really care what the quality of this looks like because I can't see it when I go home.
Okay.
You will get fired if you say that working at Citadel. If you say anything like that, just that approach to things is exactly what we're trying to get rid of in the industry. So I would say that, and then fake it till you make it, that type of deal. I grew up saying that because I feel like my whole life is a fake it till I make it, but now it's a face it till you ace it.
Nice.
And that's just get some stick with itness, keep pressing on. And then, like you said earlier, you keep doing something, you get good at it, and then you build confidence. And so it's a process, but face it till you ace it.
Face it till you ace it.
Like
That's a new
that.
one. That's a new one.
Bumper sticker.
Well, that's like that kind of hits my next. But what words of wisdom or quote has impacted you the most, aside from face it till you ace it?
Face it till you ace it. You have not because you ask not.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to if you don't have wisdom and you're not asking for wisdom, if you don't have whatever it is, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
If you don't have it and you're not asking for it, like what are you really doing? So
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. How can people get in touch with you, and how can people do business with you?
you can reach out to me directly in any way. Social media, I do still have social media. Might be canceling that. We were just talking about that. But you can call our office, the 806-516-9250. We've got a lot of people running around town. Just reach out to me in any way. We do any kind of project, big or small. We do remodels. We do new construction, anywhere in the multifamily, commercial, or industrial space.
All right. So Citadel Construction, look them up.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I've been
Thank
looking
you guys
forward to
for
this.
having me.
You
Yeah.
didn't disappoint. Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I know we did. Chase is full of colorful stories, and he's just a good old boy.
Yeah. Great guy.
So if you want more like that, go ahead and click subscribe and keep coming back. We have a lot more upcoming. So click subscribe and keep coming back. If you are a business owner or business leader and you feel stuck in your business, go to our website at stagcoaching.com, and in the top right-hand corner, click our free business assessment. In just a few minutes, in just a few questions, we can help diagnose what's going on in your business. Why are you stuck? And help you determine the next steps to get your business back on track and back to where you want it. And so go to our website, stagcoaching.com, and take our free assessment. Thank you guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.